Okay, looks to me like we are now live streaming.
Okay.
Carry on, Mr. Chair.
All right, good. We'll get started with this morning's agenda. First item on the agenda.
I am having a small technical issue with the live stream. Oh, never mind. It has successfully connected. If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chair, I will defer to you.
Okay, good. We'll start with this morning's agenda. First item on the agenda is A 2022-001, 85 Green Valley Drive. I believe Mr. Hanna had indicated that he had a conflict of interest.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a conflict on this one as I am a project manager related to the development, and I'm going to step back, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Scott. Guess we just need to move Scott out of the room. Okay, there we go. All right. The only comment that I saw that was in this, staff's recommending approval. Is the applicant online?
Through the chair, yes.
Oh, Victor? Yes. Okay, Victor. For some reason, this thing's showing me just a big picture of myself and little on top. Do I have to change that on view, I guess? Yeah, gallery view, sorry. There we go. That's better. Thank you. Okay, Victor, staff's recommending approval, subject only to a site plan approval. Did you have any questions or comments?
No, I did, Mr. Chair. The only thing I just would say very quickly, I'm here in support of the staff recommendation report. Can you hear me well enough? Or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah. My name is Victor Labreche from the IBI Group, Associate Director of the Planning Group in Waterloo office. Here in support of the staff recommendation and the one condition, as the report thoroughly addresses the fact that this building and site was, has existed for over 40 years. The site plan approved and constructed in 1979. There's 95 units. It was built at the time with a parking structure that's in failing and virtually in disrepair at this point. Structural engineering review has determined that. Fortunately, with the trend of parking reductions of new zoning bylaws we're seeing throughout Ontario, especially in built up areas such as this, where it's now certainly has evolved over the last 40 years to be well serviced by transit, commercial uses, institutional uses all around it. So the trend is for less demand on parking. This rebuild meets the approved adopted zoning bylaw parking regulation, and it allows us the existing parking structure has slightly more than the minimum of today, but it allows us to take that parking structure down and rebuild surface parking in its place in accordance with the approved zoning bylaw. That's a long story short, if I will, and again, here to answer any questions, and I appreciate your support in advance. Thank you.
All right, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Mr. Labreche. This is fairly straightforward variance. It's going to go through site plan. I think if the building's falling down, it's better to take it down before it falls down.
It's a safety.
So on that regard, Mr. Chair, I will move that this be approved with the one condition.
Second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Great. Thanks, Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, welcome back, Scott. Okay, next application is A 2022-002. Anyone here in support or opposition? We have one person in support. It's Mr. Pigeon. I see he's online. Good morning, Chris. Staff's recommending approval with 3 conditions. There was no other comments from any third-party agencies. I noticed just a question for staff or traffic that you're looking for 16 additional bicycle parking spaces. Would it maybe be prudent to indicate the general area where these should be located? It's a fairly large site.
Through this chair, I'm not sure if that's something you want to do. I think through the site plan, the group, the applicant has been they've been working to include accessible locations for these bike spaces. And I believe there already are a number of bike spaces on site. These are just additional ones that are going to be provided to help support the proposed reduction in parking to kind of provide some shared parking.
I would assume that they would be in the restaurant area, though. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Since that's why we're considering this. Okay, Scott, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a question for staff about condition number 2. I feel it's worded a little awkwardly. I'm assuming that staff wants the applicant to enter into an agreement, not simply to agree to enter into the agreement. Mr. Pigeon could simply verbally say today, I'm agreeing and satisfy that condition, which I don't think he wants to do, or maybe he does, but I think it should be worded slightly different.
Through the chair, I'm fine with that. We can take out the agrees and just go the applicant shall enter into an agreement. Is that what you're thinking about, to Mr. Hanna?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Or Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this is I know this area fairly well. I used to live in that neighborhood decades ago. This looks like to be fairly straightforward. I'm always reluctant when I see something go down to 0, but in this particular application, I think it's fine. There will be other available parking at 82 Weber Street, bicycles. So I'm prepared to support this. In fact, I'll make a motion that this be approved as amended with the revision to condition number 2.
Okay, second. Scott, all in favor? Great, thanks, Chris.
Thank you, committee.
Next application is A 2022-003. That's 53 Margaret Ave. I was to understand that there was a possible deferral on this application. Is that still the case?
Through the chair, yes, that is the case. In light of new information that's been presented to staff, we're suggesting that this application be deferred.
Okay, when do you want it deferred to?
Probably till next month. I think it should suffice.
Okay, all right. So there's a request to defer the application to next month. I suppose the applicant's in agreement with that. Are you, Dave?
Yes, we are. Yeah, the purpose of the deferrals to have some additional discussion with the neighbor, which is ongoing. So yeah, next month would be great.
Okay, great. So a motion to defer. Bob, second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, next application is A 2022-004. It's 470 Blair Creek Drive. No one registered in opposition. The applicant is in support. The applicant online. There you go. Marwan, how are you?
Muted.
Yeah. Marwan, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? There we go.
Hello.
That was having the same problems I was.
Good morning.
Good morning. Staff's recommending approval without conditions. Does anyone have any questions or comments or a motion? Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just for one variance for side yard setback to accommodate stairs for a duplex. I think it's a really good use of the basement. There's no complaints. The region has nothing to say. GRCA has nothing to say. I think this is minor, so I move that this be approved without conditions.
All right, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Next application is A 2022-004. It's, no, sorry, 005. This is Chestnut Street. There is a number of people that have registered in opposition, and the applicant is here in support. We also received numerous pieces of correspondence, all in opposition as well. With this one, I think what we'll do when we move forward is we'll hear from the people in opposition and what they have to say, and then I'll hand it over to my colleagues on the panel, and then we can address the applicant accordingly. So the first person registered is Kirsten online. Or hang on, if she's not there, we'll take Tammy, which seems to not be Tammy. Yeah. There you go. Corey. Okay, Corey.
Tammy's husband.
There. Okay, good.
Oh,
We'll just hear what you have to say.
you know what? I'd just like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak. I've submitted a letter of opposition with numerous points. I'm not great at presenting a big speech.
That's fine.
I'd like you to really consider the points that are made in those letters and likely other letters that have been received. I guess I'm just here to reinforce that this isn't a small issue for us and our quality of life and the way it may affect our neighborhood or our property.
Right.
Anyway, so I'm really here just to listen to the proceeding and reinforce again our opposition. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Does anyone have any questions for Corey before we move on to the next one? I think everyone had an opportunity to see his letter. Okay, good. Thanks, Corey. Is Kirsten online?
The chair, I believe Kristen is having some technical difficulties, and we are just working
Okay.
with her to.
Yeah, it seems to be one of those mornings, unfortunately. So, all right. Well, we'll move forward then. I just first off, I guess I've got some questions myself, and then I'll hand it back to my colleagues. First off, I guess it's been brought to our attention that you currently have a rental unit on this property in this dwelling already. Is that correct? In the basement?
That's correct. I'm renting out a Airbnb, one of the bedrooms in my house. So not a separate basement unit, just a bedroom in my house through Airbnb.
Okay, maybe a question for staff then. How would that be applicable to the zoning? Would that not be deemed a separate unit?
Through the chair, that's a great question. I don't have the answer for that right now. I didn't realize that he was using it for an Airbnb.
Yeah, I would almost think that it would, to be honest with you, because it is a completely, if you're renting it out, it is a separate, or should be deemed to be a separate unit. Which case was there building permits for that as well at the time, or was this just rented out as a room?
It's just rented out as a room. So I'm just renting a room in my house. If that's an issue, then we can make it subject to not renting out a room in my house.
Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm a little puzzled on this Airbnb thing. I'm not sure it would constitute a separate dwelling unit. There's no private kitchen. There's probably no private bathroom, or maybe
I don't know.
I don't know. But if we start declaring that when someone through Airbnb or someone else rents out a room, that we have to get variances, or it's classified. I think we're going down a rabbit hole that I'm not sure we should. So my comments are that the variances are fairly small in the application, but there is a whole bunch of people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 I have here, who of neighbors who are very concerned about a number of things. My question would be through you, Mr. Chair, to staff. Have you folks read the objections from the adjacent neighbors? And if so, what are your comments on what they are saying? Because some of them are quite interesting and fully thought through. So there's my question to staff.
Through the chair. Sorry.
I apologize. Through the chair, I do have the other delegation on the line after Mr. Bateman has responded to questions.
Okay, let's go to that.
Let's hear from Brian first.
Okay.
Okay, Brian.
Yeah, but through the chair, I was going to say yes. I'm familiar with the opposition to this proposal. I mean, I guess as a policy, and I think everyone should be aware that council has directed an accessory dwelling unit policy throughout the city. This would fall under that category. I mean, the variances that they're seeking, what they're short in a little bit of lot width, they certainly make up for more in lot area. And from staff's perspective, I mean, they can provide that emergency access that fire is requesting to get to the backyard. So from our perspective, this one seems fairly straightforward.
I think we've never really come across this. This is the first time for a situation like this. So I think we're better off, not just pushing it through and carefully considering it. That's all. And I think that's Bob's point as well, which I believe is well taken. The other issue, the other point that I want to break up with the recommendation or bring up is that recommendation is for applications only. And essentially once they make those applications, this is approved. But that doesn't necessarily, shouldn't necessarily apply as such for the site plan, because it should maybe be pegged to an approved site plan, just to ensure that everything would conform properly without automatically giving an approval, if that makes any sense. So I think this is maybe, in this instance, is maybe a little bit upside down. I'm just throwing that out there. But to me, it would seem to be, because we don't want to be deemed to be giving approval just because of an application, and specifically if the application didn't really get approved. If that makes sense. Scott?
Yeah, I had a number of concerns with this application based on what I heard from the residents in their comments, and I think what I'm meaning towards, Mr. Chairman, is a deferral to have staff answer several questions. Number one, if there are existing 2 units in the dwelling and we're looking to build a third, then the parking arrangement is quite awkward, and it would also require a variance, because I don't think you allow stacking for a triplex. The other issue is a building code one for the existing detached garage that would be converted. It's closer to the lot line that would be allowed to have windows on that side. And I believe a bedroom requires a window. And if that's the case, we've got an issue potentially with the layout of the internal for the new unit. So I'd really like staff to confirm how many units there are in the existing dwelling. I mean, the applicant has said he kind of runs an Airbnb, but every time I've rented an Airbnb, it's a self-contained unit with a washroom, kitchen, etc. So that makes me lend to believe that there might be 2 units there already. And I'd really like staff to look into that building code issue because of the proximity to the lot line, and whether or not windows to habitable rooms would be allowed.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Scott. Anyone else want to make a comment? I don't know if we need to hear from the other opposition at this point, if in fact this is going to get deferred in any event, so that we can properly evaluate it. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Mr. Hanna completely. I was going to bring that building code issue with windows and fire concerns. So I think this is an incomplete application. There's information that should be here that isn't. So I'm going to move that, I'm going to go with what Scott has said, and I'm going to move that this be deferred for a month to let staff and the applicant work out some of the loose ends. So there is a motion.
Okay. Second, Scott.
I'm prepared to second it as long as it's very clear that what we're looking for when it comes back is confirming the number of units in the existing dwelling and the building code issue for the detached garage.
Yeah, that, and I think the functionality of the parking and shared driveway access as well, as I've seen that in a couple of cases here too, and that should be looked at, because to burden a neighbor with the parking issue because of excessive, it's not fair. So, okay, all right, so that's a second. All in favor? Carried. Great, thanks. It's deferred to next month then. Thank you. Next application is A 2022-006. It was also indicated to me that they were going to be looking for a deferral on this one. Is that the case, Brian?
Through the chair, that is the case, yes. I think in light of the opposition that they've received, I think a little bit more clarity around that the parking arrangement needs to be determined to adequately address some of the concerns that we've received.
Right, and just a quick question, if we're going to defer that, I guess we need to also look at, it appeared to me that they're going to be doubling up the parking and putting it right in front of the walkway or something, so
Correct.
We'll be looking at that, I guess, more closely at when it comes back to us, because I don't know if we've ever actually approved something like that before either. So, all right. So, Alex, you're in agreement with the deferral?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I get a motion for what, 1 month?
I'll make the motion to
Okay.
defer
Thanks, Mike.
till the February meeting.
All right. Second. Bob, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Next application is A 2022 110 Manitou Drive. We have Scott. Uh, 22. Yep, 07. Scott, great, thank you. The staff's recommending approval. There's just a 2 points to bring up. The GRCA fee should be included as a condition. And region's looking for a road widening of approximately 2.13 meters. I don't know if we need to insert that as a condition at this point or not, but Scott?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I had spoken with staff about that. We understand that this will be a stamp plan B site plan application, just to confirm parking locations on site and confirm numbers. As such, the region would not be entitled to take the road widening through this process. With all due respect, I see it as onerous as forcing the landowner to convey 2 meters of the property simply for a minor variance to recognize a tenant in an existing building. The landowners may go forward with future development plans, and at that time, a road widening conveyance would be totally appropriate, and we would deal with that then.
Okay, thanks, Scott. I don't disagree with your analogy personally myself. Scott, Mr. Hanna?
Yeah, I support what Mr. Patterson is saying, and I just want to offer a comment on condition number 3 so we don't get into a chicken and egg situation. In my world, the variance needs to be supported first before the site plan is approved, and I think condition 3 should say that a site plan application be submitted to the planning division, not approved by, because you can't approve it until you get the variance approved. So it's going back and forth. I hope that will be a friendly amendment.
Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 comments. I agree with Scott completely that we've got this chicken and the egg thing keeps going around, but we have a way to solve that. And as a note, at least how I am reading the note from the region says, let me get to that. It's for future development. It hasn't really, will be required along the front of Manitou Drive for future development. Well, when it gets to the time of future development, maybe the region can bring forward that condition at that point. So I don't think we need to include the region, other than that the applicant knows that future development will trigger some comments from the region. So I'm prepared to move this as amended, as per Scott's amendment. And yeah, I'll move this with the 5 conditions.
And the GRCA fee.
Yeah, 5 conditions, including the GRCA fee.
Yep. Okay.
That's it. Yep.
Great. Okay, good. No, I was, like I said, I was bringing that forward so the region can't say that we ignored it. So it was just for discussion and not for anything else. That being said, is there a second? Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, committee. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, next application is A2022-008. It's 210 Waterloo Street. We should have 2 in the applicant and in support, and then 2 in opposition. Once again, I think what we will do is we will hear from the people in opposition first, and then we can address their comments directly with the applicant and staff. So is Connie online?
Through the chair, I do have her here. She's speaking through me at this time.
Okay.
Feel free to go ahead, Connie, when you're ready.
My only concern is the variance. The variance is already exceeded the allotted amount from where the house sits, and the blueprints show they're looking to dogleg the deck towards our backyard. Why can't they just go back to the drawing board and dogleg it to square it off to their backyard so it's not impeding on any neighbor's privacy?
Okay.
Their
That's in
deck
the back.
could be 12 feet high.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else?
This backyard, like we're all on display, and I kind of don't feel like that is fair.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Connie? Scott?
Just a question for the resident. Would the installation of a privacy fence on that side of the deck assist you in your concerns?
For the privacy issue, not necessarily for the variance. The house is already closer to the variance than it's allotted these days. I get when the house was built, that might have been fine. I have no issue with that. My issue is why they can't make the blueprints to square that off so they're looking directly into their own backyard and not right up against the fence. I mean, bylaws are in for a reason.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next person then would be, thank you, Connie, would be Jane. Is Jane online? Jane, are you there? So I see you up, but you're muted.
Through the chair, Jane is on the line. They have joined by phone. I am just
Okay.
asking them to unmute themselves.
Okay. Are you there, Jane?
Jane, if you press *6, I believe that should unmute your call.
seems to still be muted.
Yes. Through the chair, my apologies. I will reach out to Jane directly and see if I can't get this sorted for them.
Yeah, sure. Okay. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Scott.
Just a couple of quick questions through you, Mr. Chairman. The drawing, the site plan that was prepared by the architects, was it based on a survey?
That was based on the GIS mapping system, I believe. So it wasn't quite an official survey.
Okay. So that's, I'll talk a little bit further about that, Mr. Chairman, when the time comes. And I noticed that on your elevated deck, you're looking at a 3.5 foot high kind of aluminum rail system.
Yes.
Would you be interested in changing at least that facade facing the neighbors to more of a privacy fence for just to look after the privacy, the overlook into the backyard?
Yes, absolutely. We did discuss that actually, and that is definitely a possibility that we would look into for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
When the time comes, Mr. Chairman, I'll talk about the survey issue.
Okay. All right. In the meantime, it seems like we have Jane back. So Jane, you're in opposition, and maybe just explain or put forward what your concerns are.
Thank you, and please forgive my phone. I've been fighting with it for a few minutes.
That's all right. I've been fighting with my computer.
The only complaint I have, and these young people are just lovely, I cannot access my property physically at the driveway side where Jacob has put his rubber car tent. I'm assuming that will be gone, and I've been reassured that once the car tent is removed, that I will have access to my property on that side. The property line is delineated by a seam in the driveway. It's very easy to see. So the only concern I had was, would the overhang of the carport roof impact the air conditioning unit, or, you know, the draining bed that I have on the other side of my retaining wall? That was just the only concern I had.
Okay.
Can I go ahead and answer that?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
so that carport will be off of that retaining wall. There will be an eaves trough on that roof, so any watershed will be redirected away from that area. And with the carport being only posts, there won't be a wall there, a physical wall, so there will be easy access to that air conditioning unit as well. It'll be a lot easier than with the rubber car tent, actually. So everything will be completely accessible.
Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds fine to me. As long as I have access to the property and whatever mechanical work that has to be done in that area behind my retaining wall where the air conditioning unit is, I don't want anybody cracking their head on the edge of a roof. I just wanted to make sure that it was safe and easy to use. I wasn't sure where the footings were going to be, and I'm hoping and assuming that Jake would actually repair the driveway from the when he pulls out the big metal anchors that he'd put in there for that. I'm confident that he will do that. That's my only concern. I want to be able to access the property without calling an ambulance, basically.
That's a good point. No, we'll definitely make sure that everything is all safe and secure. And if there is anything with that lane, we will make sure it gets repaired. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Jane. All right. Does anyone have
Thank you all
any
for allowing.
Yep. Thank you. You're welcome. Questions or comments? Scott.
And if nobody else has anything to comment, I want the applicant to be very clear that I'm not opposed to what you're doing. I think it's an ambitious addition, but I think it's going to be a lovely addition. My two concerns are, number one, this area of the city is, I mean, the existing dwellings do not because of the awkwardness of the lot lines. They're not kind of parallel to the lot lines, if you follow me. And I don't like the fact that the sketches have been not produced based on a survey, because what may end up happening is when you go to build this thing and then you do survey it and you go to sell it at some point in the future, you're going to find that perhaps your addition is actually closer to the lot line than what you're actually showing, or may actually even encroach onto the neighbor's property. So I would prefer, Mr. Chairman, that this application be deferred so that we can get a survey of the existing site development so that we know what dimensions we're dealing with. Because I definitely do feel for the residents to the north, because they're going to have an elevated deck facing them. If we go to approve it, I would like to approve it with a privacy fence on that side. But again, I don't know how close this addition is going to be to the lot line right now. And there are windows that the applicant is proposing that may create a building code infraction if they're less than 1.2 meters away. And right now they're right on the bare minimum. So again, I like the application, but I can't make a decision personally on it right now without knowing from a survey what we're dealing with.
I guess deferrals one way, Scott. Maybe the other way is that we put a condition in there that they have to obtain a survey to confirm that the dimensioning is accurate, and if it's not accurate at that point in time, they'd have to make adjustments to their plan to bring it into conformity.
I like that approach, Mr. Chairman, maybe through Mr. Bateman. Is that something that you've done in the past?
Through the chair, I can't think of one off the top of my head where we've done that. In light of the new information, I think, and I understand where Mr. Hand is going from. I share his concern.
I do too. Is it something that's workable? Oh, I'll put it this way. If the applicant wanted to move forward with that, I would support that concept so that it's not held up. At such time, if the plans were, or if the dimensioning or modeling was incorrect, they would have to make adjustments, or he would have to bring back another application. So that's the one alternative, or the other alternative is you accept a deferral right now. So I'm just kind of throwing that out to the applicant to see which way he might like to go.
I would prefer if we could keep it on track. I would go ahead and get that survey done, and then if there are any discrepancies, then we can deal with that, if that's okay with everybody.
But
I prefer not to do the survey, but if that's what we need to do, then that's what we have to do to make everybody happy. And
yeah, I can see Mr. Hanna's concerns. So
yeah,
Bob.
I understand.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I agree with the concerns of my colleague and yourself. And I think really what we need to do is just make a slight modification to condition number 3, that the owner submit a grading plan and survey and agrees to implement the approved plan to the satisfaction of Director of Planning. So all it means is they have to do a grading plan and get a survey and go to the Director of Engineering. And if the Director of Engineering sees that the numbers don't line up, then the Director of Engineering will tell the applicant
what they have to do.
Yeah. So I think we can move ahead on this. Just add the grading plan and survey.
Sure, that sounds good, Scott.
Not to confuse matters, but I love where Bob is going, but I would prefer that we add the survey to condition 1, because they're applying for a permit prior to construction based on a survey to the satisfaction of the chief building official or the city's building division.
I consider that a friendly amendment, whether it's a condition number 1 or condition number 3, I think is a move.
Insert it in both places. How's that?
King Solomon here today. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if the applicant's agreeable to some type of a privacy screen on, I would guess, the northern side, I would want to add maybe condition 5, that privacy screen to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning be installed along that facade.
Okay, yeah, he indicated that he would, and that should satisfy the neighbors' concerns somewhat. So, all right, so that's a further condition then. So there's amending the 2 conditions and adding the privacy screen condition. Is that a motion on the floor?
Make that motion, Mr.
Scott?
Chairman.
Okay, second.
I'll
Bob, all in favor? Carried. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next application is A22 2022-009. And is anyone in opposition? We've got a person in, okay, 2 people in support. There we go. Staff's recommending approval with a number of conditions. There was a comment from transportation. I didn't really see where it was picked up in the conditions, and I think maybe it should be, and I'm just throwing this out on the floor for discussion, and that was to provide bicycle parking. Steve, would you feel comfortable with seeing some form of a condition in there in that regard?
Through the chair, if you feel that's appropriate, I'm fine with that. I'm not sure, maybe Brian can comment in if it's a requirement or not, but it's just something that we in transportation have been recommending as well, if it's not technically a requirement, given the direction that we've been going in.
Right. I guess it's a requirement if we deem that it's a requirement. So I think it's probably a good idea, and what we're doing is we're just that would reinforce your concerns as well, which I don't think would be a problem. Let's see that the applicant's online. Would you have a problem with that, Radhika?
That is putting in that is putting in some bicycle parkings.
Yeah. It's a pretty standard.
I do not think we will actually encourage it, so that should not be a problem.
Okay, so maybe we just add another condition that the applicant will provide some bicycle parking on
My
site.
husband is here. This is the guy that's going to do the work. Everybody, good morning.
Hello, sorry
Yeah.
guys, I'm online with work actually, so I figure I'd just jump in quickly. My wife is filling in.
So we'll look at
Sorry,
adding
is
a
it a
condition.
recommendation?
Yeah, we'll look at adding a condition then that the applicant would provide bicycle parking in accordance with, or to the satisfaction of traffic or planning.
Through
I
the
think it's a
chair,
good idea. Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah.
I believe through the chair, I believe the site will be going through a stamp plan or some sort of site plan application. And I think Brian can comment on that or confirm, and then we can look at how that would be implemented via the site plan application.
Okay. So then we'll
Yeah,
just
I
say
have
in
no
accordance.
problem. Yeah, I
Okay,
have no
good.
problem with that. Thank you.
Yep. So then we'll just say in accordance with the approved site plan or site plan application process. Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm a little confused on something here. It's on page, now these pages are numbered, page 235 shows a parking layout. And the lot line, I don't know whether it's to the north of the property where there's parking for 1, 2, 3, 4 parking spaces there. But there's an intrusion into the neighbor's property. Now that the lot line shown on page 235 is different from what is shown on the city's on-point view mapping system. It's also different from what the GRCA shows in their submission. So my question is this 1, 2, 3, 4 extra parking spaces jutting out from the backyard? Is that has that been done by an encroachment or a severance, or is this an agreement with the neighbor? I'm a little confused on those.
I can answer that question actually.
Sure.
Okay, so these 2 properties are bought under our personal name. And several years ago, these properties actually merged together. We had applied to get it severed, but then that application fell off. And now those 2 properties are one parcel of land.
Ooh.
Okay.
Through the chair
Mike?
to the
Yeah,
applicant,
Mike.
just to confirm, the buildings that you're talking about are the 2 buildings that face onto Sterling Avenue, or the properties merging front to back with the
entire
parking lot
property is
between?
merged. Sorry, the entire property is merged completely. 754 Sterling and 764 Sterling is one, according to my understanding. because they were purchased under the same, they're adjoined in Part A of Part B.
Yeah, they're purchased in the same name. They
Correct.
automatically would merge on title.
Correct. So right now, they're not two separate parcel of land. They're just
Correct.
one.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr.
Bob?
Chair, that may cause problems down the road if the applicant wants to sever. I guess there would have
He'd
to
have
be.
to sever on it. He'd have to sever on a jog line.
Yeah.
He'd have to resurvey it and sever on a jog line. So it's not really a problem, I don't think, Bob.
It's not, yeah, it's a future issue if we decide to sever.
Right. Right.
Oh, that answers my question.
They might want to adjust that entire line right down the whole side. Who knows? That's Scott.
I was just going to solve Bob's problem by saying that the parking requirement in the new zoning bylaw would be much less than what they're showing. So they may not actually even need that 4 parking spaces at some point. They need it now, but they won't need it in the future.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a friendly amendment with the parking. We can address that. You can address that at site plan, time of site plan, right, Brian?
That's correct.
All right. So we can word it that way then. Is there any other questions or comments or motion? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, to move things along, I move that this be approved as amended based on the discussions we have had.
Okay, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day. Or everyone, thank you very much. Have a good day.
You're welcome. You too.
Can we leave now?
Okay. Yes, you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Thank
Happy
you.
New Year. Yep.
You too. Okay, next application is A 2022-10. It's 129 Max Becker Drive. The applicant, I assume it's Grant that's going to be, yep, there's Grant there. Staff's recommending approval with 2 conditions. I think we picked up all the outside agency comments. It's fairly straightforward. Does anyone have any questions or comments or motion? Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a fairly straightforward application, and I want to thank staff for adding the 1-story reference in the resolution, because that's come up from time to time. I think this is a really good addition, and it's not going to impact any neighbors, so I would certainly move the staff recommendation.
Second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Next application is B 2022-001. It's a severance. Daniel is the applicant.
Yes, present by telephone.
Sure, sounds good. Staff's recommending approval with conditions. They're all fairly straightforward conditions. Do you have any questions, Daniel?
No questions.
Okay, great. Okay, back to my colleagues. Any questions, comments, or motion? Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a fairly straightforward severance of a new semi. They're not asking for any variances. The region has been covered and there's no GRCA comments. So I move that this be approved with the, is it 11, 12 conditions? Oh, there's an addition for number 12. 350 to the region and a section 55 notice, 59 notice.
Yep. Okay. Second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Next application is B 2022-002, 670 Fairway Road. There's Brian.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't realize I had my camera turned on off till now.
Yeah, you are alive. Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments? As we've seen these before, it's pretty straightforward application. Comments or emotion? Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like, we don't see consent for long-term lease very often, but obviously staff are satisfied that a Burger King should be there for quite some time, and I'm not going to disagree with that. So I move the staff recommendation subject to the various conditions.
Okay, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is B 2022-003. And I think that's Boban is on that one. Sorry about that. There he is. Good morning, Boban. Staff's recommending approval with conditions. Anyone have any questions or comments or motion? Scott?
I have no issue with the application at all, Mr. Chairman, and I just simply wanted to thank the applicant for working with staff and coming back with a what I believe is a much better intensification application. You're going to get 4 units out of it with equal size lots, and it certainly makes sense to me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good. Anyone else or a motion? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, a question for staff. This has been back and forth since October of last year. If I recall correctly, there were a number of neighbors, quite a few neighbors who raised some very good concerns about this. So my question to staff is, have the concerns that were raised back in October and November by the adjacent neighbors, have they been properly addressed, and are the neighbors aware of what the applicant is proposing now? Did that make sense?
It did, through the chair. And this is advertised as a new application. So if there were any concerns, they would have had the opportunity to raise them. So I'm confident that they've been addressed. Sorry.
Through the chair. To the best of my recollection, I don't believe any opposition was received with respect to this matter. I think that the sheer amount of written submissions for today might have been Scott, I'm sorry.
Okay, Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I recall, the issue was more with staff than the residents. I'm not suggesting Bob's wrong, but I don't remember a lot of neighborhood opposition. It was more the fact that the lots were undersized and staff were concerned. So anyway, I'm prepared to move the staff recommendation if nobody has any other comments.
Nope, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Great. Thanks, Boban.
Thanks.
Okay, last application is B 2022-04, 2022-05, 2022-06. There we go. And the applicant, was the applicant online? Okay, it's a little housekeeping here before we move forward. The region has asked for some conditions that were not picked up that should be inserted. So we need to add the regional conditions, and there was 2 conditions by the region, and also the school board had sent through and just wanted to voice a friendly concern. That was to ensure, because this property abuts a schoolyard, that there is currently a fence in place, and that fence is maintained currently during the construction and afterwards as well. So we may want to just consider a condition for that too, just to ensure that in fact is adhered to, and specifically since it is for the well-being and safety of the children in the schoolyard next door. So I would suggest that as a friendly recommendation as an addition to the condition as well. That being said, does anyone have any questions or comments or a motion for the applicant? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, seeing no one is going to jump in. We took a look at this back in February 2 years ago, and it was approved then. I guess the applicant just didn't meet the timeline. I agree, Mr. Chair, that we should add the conditions from the region, the two of them, the 350 and a section 59 notice. With those modifications, amendments, I move that this be approved as amended.
And the fence condition too, Bob? Or
yeah, and the fence condition. Yeah.
Sure. Scott?
Yeah, I support what my colleague, Mr. McCall, is saying. I just was hoping that Brian would help us with a wording of a fence condition. I think maybe something to the effect that the existing fence be repaired to the satisfaction of the director of planning if required, or something like that.
Yeah, and ensure that it's that it stays in good condition, as currently and during, as well as during construction and afterwards as well.
Yeah.
Maybe something to that too.
Just so you're aware, committee members, the actual school has been demolished.
Yeah.
So
That must be still being used as a playground or something though.
Yeah.
So we're just being respectful for the concern, and I think that the safety and well-being of the children in the neighborhood. So I don't think it's an unreasonable request.
Does my wording make sense, Brian, that the existing fence be repaired to the satisfaction of director of planning if required?
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
If Bob's making that motion, I'll certainly second it.
Okay. Scott, second. Yes, the applicant has her hand up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I have a question. I know that we missed the deadline and we had this problem with the first decision from 2019.
Yeah.
We didn't, because of the COVID situation, and then the deadline was expanded. And then we thought that's still going, and then that was kind of miscommunication with the city. Meantime, we applied for permit. Everything is approved from the city. We paid the almost 220,000 fees and permits. And then my question, what's going to happen with the permits right now? I know they're revoked, but the other question is, I know that we got a letter now, an email that building code has changed because of the stairs, and the permits has been issued with the old building code. What's going to happen with all this situation?
You have to address those questions directly with the building department. This committee doesn't deal with those type of things.
And then regarding the fence, I know I just searched. The school has been demolished maybe 5 years ago. I'm not sure, but when this fence is not in good condition, and then we're going to try to keep. We're not going to demolish the fence because it's at the backyard is 7.5 meters. We don't have to dig so far. Only the north side maybe we're going to take care, but I don't know how old is this fence, but we're going to take care. We're going to be so careful.
Right.
And when the building inspector comes and sees, and if it's damaged, we're going to repair or replace it.
Right.
Or
that's all we're saying.
Yeah. If the fence is in the property line between school board property and our property, and we want in future to do a wood fence, what we're going to happen? We have to ask them and share, or we just going to put wood fence in our property, and it's going to be just that fence there.
Yeah, you don't have to ask them and share. You can put a new proper wood fence up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and then regarding the fees, regional, we already paid for the previous decision. That's, we have to pay again, 1,500.
Yes, sorry, but yeah, that's the way it goes. These are things that are all time sensitive, so. Okay, so that's a motion on the floor. All in favor? I think we had a second to that, did we not? Yeah, I believe so. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good. That's it. Motion to adjourn.
I'll move an adjournment.
Second, Mike. Yes.
Before we,
yes.
After we adjourn and before we go off live streaming, I have a question for Sarah.